I wasn't supposed to survive the crash. One minute I was piloting the diplomatic shuttle Horizon toward the Thala Nebula, and the next I was spiraling into the atmosphere of an unmapped moon, alarms screaming, metal tearing, flames swallowing every screen in front of me. When the shuttle finally slammed into the ground, I thought that was the end. But fate wasn't finished with me. I woke in a cavern of black stone and violet crystal veins, surrounded by tall armored figures, women, all of them, bearing weapons that shimmered like living lightning. Their silver-blue skin glowed faintly in the cold air. They spoke in a sharp, rhythmic language I couldn't understand. I pushed myself to sit up, coughing blood, but one of the guards slammed her spear into the ground, warning me not to move. Then she stepped forward. The Queen. She didn't need a crown to be recognized. Her presence alone felt like gravity, pulling everything toward her. Her hair fell like strands of molten white metal, her eyes bright as twin stars. Power and calm radiated from her, and every warrior around her bowed low, heads pressed to the floor. Except me, because I couldn't take my eyes off her. She studied me silently for what felt like an eternity, then spoke a single word. Human. I didn't know how she knew my species or how she knew my language, but she said it like a revelation, like she'd been waiting her entire life to say it. When I didn't answer fast enough, she gestured to the guards. They seized me by the arms and dragged me through glowing halls carved from crystal. I was thrown into a chamber and chained to a stone pillar. The Queen followed, her footsteps echoing. "What is your name?" she asked. "Elias," I answered through gritted teeth. "Ambassador Elias Mercer, United Human Colonies." She stepped closer, too close, and the chains rattled as I instinctively tried to pull away. Her hand hovered just beneath my jaw. "You survived a fall that should have killed any mortal," she murmured. "Your species fascinates me." Her finger touched my skin, and everything changed. A surge of energy tore through me. Not pain, not pleasure, not electricity, but something deeper. A torrent of memories and emotions that weren't my own flashed through my mind. Crowns forged in fire, wars across the stars, betrayal, heartbreak, and a deep, ancient loneliness. I gasped and collapsed. When I looked up, the Queen's expression was no longer calm. It was terrified. "You felt it too," she whispered. In the days that followed, I learned the truth. I wasn't a prisoner. I was the answer to a prophecy. The Thalorian Queen wasn't merely a ruler. She was the ecliptic sovereign, a being bound to the fate of her entire species. For millennia, Thalorian queens carried the weight of psychic memory from every generation before them, the triumphs and sufferings of thousands of ancestors. It was a burden that crushed most of them. But legend foretold that one day a being would touch the Queen and absorb a portion of her inherited agony, freeing her from the unending psychological torment. That being was human. My accidental crash landing wasn't an accident to the Thalorians. They believed destiny had brought me to them. Since our touch, the Queen slept for the first time in decades. The Thalorians worshipped her renewed energy. But in private, her steel composure shattered. She visited me night after night, not as a ruler, but as a person finally allowed to feel again. We spoke for hours in that hidden chamber about our civilizations, our losses, our fears. She told me that the Thalorian queens lived isolated lives. They couldn't love, laugh, or trust anyone. To be close to others meant feeling all the pain of their ancestors amplified. "So we rule with distance," she confessed. "We must not care, because to care is to break." I stared at her, this unshakable warrior empress, and saw the quiet ache she had buried her whole life. "Maybe you don't have to rule alone anymore," I whispered. Her eyes widened, like no one in the history of her empire had ever dared say that. But not everyone celebrated her recovery. The High Council feared change. For centuries, they controlled the monarchy by keeping queens dependent and emotionally fractured. A strong, unburdened ruler would threaten their power.
So they targeted me.
The night their ambush came, I was dragged from my chamber by masked warriors and thrown into the arena, an execution masked as entertainment for the council. A towering, four-armed gladiator stepped forward, weapons raised. I wasn't a fighter. I wasn't a soldier. And I certainly wasn't supposed to survive. But I did. Because the queen arrived. Her power lit the arena like a supernova. Armor shattered, stone cracked, and the council fell to their knees in sheer terror. She walked toward me, not as a queen, not as a conqueror, but as someone who refused to lose the one thing the universe had finally given her. She put her hand against my cheek again. The same explosion of feeling surged, but this time I was ready. This time I held her gaze. "I'm not afraid of your pain," I whispered. "You never have to face it alone again." She trembled. The room full of warriors fell silent, not because of fear, but because they witnessed something no Thalorian had ever seen. Their queen crying. She turned to the council, voice ringing like burning steel. "My destiny is changed. And so has yours." Months later, the Thalorian Empire transformed from the inside out. The monarchy no longer existed to suffer in silence. Emotional connection became a strength, not a weakness. The queen took her throne not as a symbol of fear, but as a symbol of unity. And I didn't return to Earth. Not because I was trapped, but because leaving her would have broken me. One evening, on a balcony overlooking the twin moons, she approached me quietly. "You altered the fate of an empire without lifting a weapon," she said. "You changed me." I smiled. "I think you changed me first." She reached out, slow, deliberate, and touched my hand. Not as a prophecy, not as a ruler, but as a woman. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Elias, will you stand beside me? Not as my savior, not as my possession, but as my equal." I looked at her, this powerful, beautiful, once untouchable queen, and I knew there was only one answer. Always. She pulled me close, and the entire balcony glowed with the energy of a bond older than galaxies and stronger than destiny. That night, the universe felt small, not because the stars were close, but because for the first time in both of our lives, we were not alone.